Okay, so just two questions, relatively tricky questions. I was about to say relatively straightforward, but there's a little bit of trickiness to both of these questions. Both are for foundation and potentially higher as well. They're crossover questions. Good luck with paper two, guys. I hope it goes okay. And again, just massive good luck. Good luck, guys. Okay, so this is a tricky question, and the main thing is this key bit down the bottom where we've got 5 marks, right? So I'm not expecting everyone to get 100% on this. What I want people to do is to make sure that they get some sort of marks, because there's a relatively easy 2 marks to get here, right? Okay, the first thing he's got here is the tank is full of oil. Now, the word full means that there's going to be some sort of volume involved. It's because of the fact that effectively the oil is going to be inside of the tank. So if we just go, okay, tank, and we work out the volume of it. So if you see a cuboid and you're not sure what to do, try working out the volume. It's pretty much the easiest thing to think about doing. Right here, so we're going to have 60 times by 50 times by 40. Well, we have our calculators now because it is now paper 2. So just whack this into your calculator and you will get 120,000 centimetres cubed. Right, you might get a mark for that, you might not. You definitely will get a mark though if you did both of them. So if you work out the area of this container, we may or may not need to do this for the question. This is just me in autopilot trying to get marks in a pretend exam I'm never going to take. Right, okay, so let's go, and that's going to be, so there's going to be the volume of the tank and the volume of the container. Okay, so the next line is the oil container is empty. Okay, right, brilliant, great. We don't need to necessarily do anything about that. 35% of the tank is spilled. Okay, so we now need to find 35% of which is it's going to be the tank. So it's going to be 35% of tank. So it's 35% of 120,000. Okay, right. So using whichever which way method you do. So I've been sort of teaching lately just 35 out of 100 on the calculator times by 120,000. And what will that give us? Again, excuse me, because I don't have the pre-prepared solutions. 120,000. That's going to give us 42,000 centimeters cubed. Okay, but that's the oil that's been spilled. So we need to make a note. That's going to be the spilled oil. So the spilled bit. So what we actually need is the leftover oil. So the leftover oil is going to be 120,000 minus 42,000. Okay. So 120,000 minus 42,000, and that's going to give us 78,000. Now notice that I'm not trying to do that in my head, because you want to be saving all of your brain power for the exam. Even when you're a super brainiac, incredibly intelligent man such as myself, you still don't want to be doing effectively doing any calculations here, because trust me, having done some really complicated questions these past few weeks, the amount of mistakes that you're going to make, you want to be saving that all for accuracy marks. Okay, right, okay, so let's go to the next bit. So here I've got new section, new colour, right. So the blue and the red bit, you should be looking to, I think most people will be able to get those marks, so you want to be looking to get those marks, right? The rest of it is kind of tricky. Now, to work out the height of the oil in the container, this bit is tricky, okay? So how would you work that out? Well, what you've actually got is effectively, we now need to work out the base of the container. And why would we ask that? Why would we work this out? Well, because effectively let's just work it out first. So we've got base area container. Well, because of the fact that we've got 80 times by 70 is equal to 5,600 centimeters cubed. Okay, right. So 5,607 centimeters cubed. Oh no, squared. See, told you. Look, even without a calculator. Even with a calculator, I still get things wrong. Right, okay, 5,600 centimeters squared. Well, that area is essentially the kind of level. So if you kind of can imagine that effectively, it's going to be almost imagine that like bricks. So one layer of that is 5,600 centimeters squared. So we can imagine that basically what's happening is the leftover water in this tank here is going to be kind of like layered up. So it's going to be kind of, imagine they're like little individual gaps. I know that's kind of hard to appreciate, but imagine that those gaps here are going to increase up by from 78,000 centimeters cubed in little steps in effectively like in a little bit like your 5,600 times table. So each one is going to increase per centimeter. So say for example, if it was 3 centimeters high, it would be 3 centimeters times by 5,600. So 5,600 times by 3 would be 68,800. Okay, I hope that kind of makes some sort of sense. It's kind of tricky to perceive. So here, what we have to do is to find out what the height is going to be. We have to effectively do 78,000 divided by 5,600. Okay, so 78,000 divided by 5,600, and it gives us 13.928. Right, and I believe any kind of, it says here now to any degree of accuracy, so that means it's going to be 13.4 centimeters high. Appropriate degree of accuracy, I mean, to be honest with you, personally, I just put 13.9 centimeters because you could have millimeters, and that is the answer. Really tricky question. Make sure you get some sort of marks. I'm going to approximate a mark for each bit. So here we've got 5 marks. So I'd say this is going to be a mark. I'd say that this could be a mark. I'd say that this is definitely a mark. And you might get a mark for this. And you could get a mark for that. So 5 relatively easy marks. So, sorry, repeat that again. Not 5 easy marks. 2 relatively easy marks. 1 medium mark. And 2 kind of really tricky marks, right? But 3 out of 5 isn't bad. Good luck, guys. Okay, so this is a tricky question. And the reason why it's a tricky question is because of the fact that, well, firstly, it's worth, I believe, 5 marks. Yeah, 5 marks this question's worth. So there's clearly, again, quite a few ways to kind of get marks. But this one is not necessarily strictly in the correct order. So here, on Saturday, some adults and some children were at a theatre. The ratio of the number of adults to the number of children is 5 to 2. So let's just go and write that out. A to 5, and B to children. Right, okay, so 5 to 2. Now, if you want to go a step further, we could just go and put the little boxes in. Okay, we've got 5 and 2 children. Right, okay. Each person has a seat in the circle or a seat in the stalls. There are 3/4 of the children so 3/4 of the children had a seat in the stalls. And 117 children had seats in the schools. There are exactly 2,000 seats in the theatre. Right, okay. On Saturday, there were people. Were there people on more than 60% of the seats? Right. Okay. So how are we going to approach this? There's quite a lot going on here, so we need to break this down to multiple different steps. Okay, so let's go and have a look at the 3/4. So the 3/4 of the children in the stalls. So we're going to have effectively, we've got stalls or circle. Okay, and it says of the children, and all the only information that we've got children and 117, and we've got 3/4 of them. We have no information whatsoever on the adults. So we've got to focus in on the children first and then kind of work our way back to the adults, hopefully. So if we say the stalls is going to be 3/4 and the circle is going to be 1/4, so of the children's seats. Okay, and it says 117 of the children had seats in the circle. That means that 117 children took up those seats. By doing that, we can then kind of work backwards and work out how many children there are in total. This is why this is a hard question. Right, okay, so how are we going to do that? Well, we've got effectively a reverse fraction situation. And if you can imagine what 3/4 looks like, well, if you imagine that 1/4 is going to be equal to 117, well, if you want to work out the whole thing, well, it's just going to be 117 times by 4. And that's going to give us the children. Now, the reason why I'm going to keep reiterating why this question I think is really difficult is because most pupils will just focus directly in on the bit that you're given at the start, that 5/2. Now, that 5/2 is actually not your first port of call. We've got to actually find out what this is first, okay? What the number of children is. Now we can then go back and use that ratio. So let's go back and use that ratio. So I'm going to redo that ratio over here. We're going to have 5, and we've got 2 children. So it's going to be 5 adults. Let's draw our boxes, and 2 children. And we are given that there are 468 children. Okay. Now, notice that I've circled children, not the total amount. We don't have the total amount. All we have is the children. So there's 468 children. And there is 2 parts. Okay, so to work out a ratio, or the total number of people, what we need to do is we need to work out what 1 part's worth. So it's going to be 468 divided by 2, and that is going to give us 234 per part. Okay, per part. Right, big question, running out of room, not really laid this out great. Okay, so 234 per part. Once we've done that, we then have got to we really need to work out, well, how many people are at this, what is it? Is it a theatre show? How many people at this theatre show? So it's going to be 234 times by 7. Okay, 234 times 7, which is going to give us 1,638 people attended. Okay, so that's great. That's like, I don't know how many words. We're looking at probably easy 3 marks here. We've now got this other bit. And not all parts are created equally. You don't necessarily have to do them in the correct order. If you couldn't get this bit, that bit, and that bit is kind of tricky because we've got a lot of reverting back, what I would then do is I'd then go, is there anything else I can find in the question? And this is one of the reasons why I've chosen this question. There are exactly 2,600 seats in the theatre. On Saturday, were there more than 60% of the seats taken up, basically? So, well, here's another mark we can potentially get. We just need to find out what 60% of 2,600 is. And then we basically need to say whether or not this 1,638 is greater than that. If it is, well, that bit holds true. If not, it doesn't. So here, if we do 60% of 2,600, the 2,600 times by 60 over 100 is going to give us 1,560. Okay, so, and that's the 560 seats. So there are 1,638 people. Therefore, there were. Yes, there were. And that's all you do if you have to put, yes, there was. Okay, tough question. The main real points for that question is that sometimes, unfortunately, the marks that you're going to get aren't going to be necessarily in order, certainly not in order of easiness to get. Make sure you read the full question, go through and find those individual marks one by one. 1 out of 5 marks is better than none out of 5 marks. Good luck, guys. Thanks.